Oh, yeah.
Just, you can stay. Okay. Yeah, I don't understand. I feel what it is. So, are you guys ready? And I can
Okay.
start.
Hope my hands aren't like. Okay, this is like this will be fine. This is good. Are there any things here, guys?
Just don't look out.
Yeah, they are.
Makes me more.
It does, actually. I know. I wondered if it would figure out how to go. Are you seeing that? How he does this? I was doing it. Okay, look.
Good morning. All right, I think we'll get started here. A lot to talk about, so we'll get rolling here. But yeah, so this, if you don't know what class you're in here, this is the Ecuador update. This last July we took a trip to Ecuador to visit the Kings and put on a VBS there, and so we'll introduce ourselves in here just a little bit, but. I mean, we're excited to share the things that we get to do there, but more importantly, we want to be able to report back to you as a church. You guys are due this presentation. You've invested in it, and I just kept thinking of Proverbs 3:27. Do not withhold good from those whom it is due, when it is in your power to do it. That could probably be applied several ways, but for me, I kept thinking of that even when we were in Ecuador, of just we're just the ones being sent, and there's been so much invested from you guys, and you're due the time to hear the fruit of the trip. So, in many ways, whether it be just encouragement, because for some of us, this has been our first time out of the country, and that's kind of a big deal. Just encouragement, your prayers, financial support. There's way too many people to thank here, but I do want to just mention a few people. Sharon Carey for just helping us get a curriculum together for putting on a VBS. The Tolsons and the Meadowmans provided props for us to take down. Jacinta helped with putting some songs on a flash drive, and the Roads sending crafts down with us. But there's people gave us gifts, people gave us suitcases to take down, and so all this is just the fruit of your labor that we're presenting. So I want, as you listen, this isn't our trip. This isn't our trip. This is our trip. And I want you to be able to enjoy that. So to give you kind of a rundown of what we went down there to do, and then each of us will kind of share maybe something that we learned or a specific part of the trip. But just in general, this actually started last year about this time, that Amanda King asked our church to send a group down to them to put on a VBS for their missionary kids. So each year they have a spiritual life conference that they put on themselves. They invite a speaker to come in, and it's a time that whole week for the missionaries to get together to just enjoy time, not being so immersed in their ministry duties, but just to encourage each other, play board games together, they pray together, worship together. It's just a really good time of refreshment for them. Well, it can be a time of refreshment so long as our kids are being watched and someone's kind of helping with that, because otherwise they're distracted and it's just not as easily to do that. So they invite a team to come down. They like to have a team from out of their country to come in, but they haven't been able to do that since 2020 because of COVID. They've only kind of provided that themselves. But to have someone come from another country is super special to them. It communicates just an extra level of commitment and love. Obviously, they enjoy the out-of-the-country candy and gifts that are usually brought to them. So they haven't had this for years. So just the fact that we were able to come down was a huge, huge gift to them. So we have 5 days with them. 4 days of VBS, and then the 5th day is kind of like a presentation to all the parents of what all their kids have been learning, what all they've been doing. It's time for the kids to kind of show off the stuff that they've been working on. So basically our schedule for the day is we wake up, we have breakfast with the whole team, the parents and the kids. Then we have just a really short, brief time of just setting our stuff up, our stations up for the day. Then we all meet together, the adults, the kids, us, for a time of worship together. And then the kids are ours till lunchtime. And so we put on the same VBS program that Newcastle put on this summer, so Armor of God curriculum. And the same things that you saw here. So skits, games, lesson times, songs, prayer together. It's just really a fantastic, we could probably camp on that, but too many stuff to talk about here. So, and then when lunchtime came, we thought maybe our time with the kids were going to be done, and then we could focus on kind of debriefing the day, start prepping for the next day. But as you'll hear in a little bit, there really was no off time for us. It was fantastic too. We're glad it worked out that way, just being with the kids basically the whole time. Let's see, what else did I want to say about that before I continue? I think we'll just keep going here, so I'll let Cody share. But that's kind of in a nutshell what we did each day. Hopefully at the end of this time, we'll leave, if you guys have a couple questions, hopefully you have time for that. But here you go.
Okay.
Say your name.
Okay, so I'm Cody Delagrange, Justin's wife, and these are our 3 children. And so I just wanted to share one way that God provided in a really unexpected but neat way while we were in Ecuador. So you might remember that before, well, even right up to the time we left, we had been asking you to pray along with us for a passport that we were still waiting on. So Esther King, her family still lives in Ecuador. She's been here in the States now for a couple years, and her passport had expired. And so she had renewed it, but it wasn't coming. It was due to come the week we left, still wasn't coming. And so the day before we left, her parents and Justin and I and her had to make a decision. And so we decided to go ahead and cancel her ticket so it could be refunded, so that it could be used at a later date. And so we were so sad not to go with her with us. She is an expert in Ecuadorian culture. She knows the people. She knows the language. Her and Darby were going to be our main translators. So there's a couple missionary families that are actually native Ecuadorians, and so their children either only speak Spanish or that's their language of preference. And so we wanted to be able to teach the Bible, especially that part, in whatever language the kids could best understand it. So she was going to help Maddie, Justin, and I translate as we taught the older kids, and then Darby was translating with Josie and Avery for the younger kids. So we knew we just were going to have to make do. And so we did the first day of VBS. It went okay. We made do, between charades and the Spanish we know. We were getting along okay. The older girl in our group that we thought was Spanish speaking only actually ended up knowing quite a bit of English, so that helped a ton. But as we were teaching that day, we noticed that Carly, who was the oldest missionary kid. She's 14, and we were teaching ages 10 to 14. And she's actually a friend of our family. We knew her from before. She wasn't really super engaged. She was kind of on the outskirts of her group. Didn't really seem to be really enjoying herself. And it was disappointing because we wanted this to be a blessing to her too. But she was close to Josie, who was teaching the younger kids. And so anyway, we just weren't quite sure what to do about that. And then that night, I was talking to her dad, and he said, how'd she do? Was she connecting? And I said, not really. And he kind of already anticipated that a little bit. So he said, is there anything she could do to help you guys? Like, could she maybe be more a part of the team? And so we were like, yes, we could use her. So we had also been asked to help watch 3 toddlers while we were down there during the parents' teaching time so that they could really be able to listen and engage. And so we had 3 extra little ones, 2 whom weren't very impressed with us because they didn't know us. And so one didn't want to come at all with us, flat out refused the first day. So I asked Carly, would you help us with the toddlers? You know them better. They might, feel more comfortable with you. And she said, sure. So then the rest of the week, actually, she was with us as more part of the team. And she helped and was a huge blessing. The little Emma, who wouldn't come with us, latched right on to Carly. And Carly was just that extra set of hands. And then she translated in crafts as well, which was a huge help. And it was awesome just to have her kind of join the team. And then that way she felt connected. And she was blessed by serving and by jumping in and giving back to these kiddos too. And we were so blessed by her and her help. So just a cool way that God provided way differently than we expected. Of course, we still really missed Esther and trust that he had a plan in that for her as well, and that he'll use that in her life. But just awesome to see God's faithfulness.
Hi, my name is Ecuador Report, and one thing I kind of wanted to talk about was my family's last trip was about 5.5 years ago for a year, kind of compared with our trip this summer, 13. And one thing that I thought was really cool was just, last time we became really familiar with just little things like certain smells throughout the different areas of the city. You're walking down the street, by bakeries, and through the market, and by the river that runs through Loja, and just even one thing we all noticed after being back, the first thing we noticed was all the smells, we remember them all, and it's bringing back so much memories for us, so that was really cool. Another thing is people that we knew from last time that we got to see again or recognize. So one example of that was in the market, there was this fruit stand that was run by this guy, and our family would always go there when we lived there for a year, and so we kind of became, good friends with him. We'd always talk when we went to his fruit stand, whatever. And this year when we were in the market, we wanted to go back to the fruit stand, we wanted to see if he was still there, and sure enough, he was still there, and even after 5.5 years, he recognized us, and we were able to talk, and so that was just really cool for us. One other example was Hyro was a guy that was in my dad's youth group that he helped lead, and my dad said that he just really connected with him while he was there, and it was really good. And he wanted to be able to meet up with him and talk with him again this year. But, wasn't sure if that was going to happen or anything. But we ended up walking through one of the supermarkets there in Ecuador, and we happened to run into this guy. And so that was kind of an answer to prayer that we were able to talk with him. And my dad was able to, chat and catch up with him, I think, again. And one other thing, just even the Sin missionary kids. Obviously, some families moved out of Ecuador since the last time we've been there, but there was also new families, and there was also some families that we recognized. So it was really cool to see the kids, and they've grown up a little bit since last time, but also they're just how similar they were to the last time we were there, and how they recognized us, and we recognized them, and we're glad to see each other, and so that was really cool to be able to kind of connect with them again.
So I'm going to talk about more about Slick and what it was like and kind of what I helped with. So for the lesson time, I helped with the younger kids, and there were two little boys who only spoke Spanish, who were Renzo and Benja. Renzo is 5 years old, and Benja was 7. And I helped with the Spanish group along with Darby and Avery. And it was challenging because they only spoke Spanish, but it was really helpful that Darby knew Spanish and me and Avery knew some. But they were really, really fun kids, and it was a really good time. And I was really glad to be able to help with the Spanish group. One story that I have is Renzo, the little boy, loved the armor of God that we brought. So the theme was armor of God, and we brought this plastic set, and he wanted to wear it all the time whenever he could. He would always ask to wear it even during the lesson time, and it was really funny because he just loved to wear it. So at the end of the week, the presentation that we gave to the parents, where we showed them what we had done with their kids. They sang some songs that they had learned and talked a little bit about what we had taught them. And then at the very end, they each got a piece of the armor. They said what it was, and then they put it on this little boy, Renzo. And he loved it because at the end, he was wearing the full armor of God in front of everyone, and it was just really fun. I also helped with crafts, and it's on the picture, but there wasn't a Spanish and an English group, it was just combined. But I got to help with everyone, and I loved helping all the kids. And I got to translate for the Spanish and also help the English, and I loved being able to just talk with everyone and help them with crafts and be able to just communicate with them better. But apart from VBS was only half the day, as Ted mentioned. It went up until lunch, and so the rest of the day was free, or we got to do whatever we want around the campus. And so the kids just continued to always want to be with us and to hang around us and do stuff with us as much as they could. And Carly, as Mom talked about earlier, was one of my best friends that I met the first time we went to Ecuador. I hadn't seen her for 5 or 6 years, and so we got to see each other again, and I loved being able to hang out with her, and so she stayed with us too. But being able to be with the kids the whole rest of the day, even when we weren't doing VBS, was so helpful because we got to get to know them better, especially the first few days when we didn't really know them. And it really helps build relationships and help us bond with them better. They had a pool at the place, so we swam and we did crafts. Either they hadn't finished from that day or just other crafts they wanted to do, like beads or bracelets, or we just kind of hung out with them. And typically at the end of the day, we would organize a hide-and-seek game in the dark or something fun to do with all of them, and I liked to be able to just play with all of them and just include all of them. And it was amazing to be able to, do that. And it was a fun little thing to do before we all went to our rooms. But another story I have is the night before the last day of Slick, we were packing gifts for all the kids. And it was hard to do because they all wanted to be around us, and we didn't want them to see their gifts yet. So they were all wanting to ask to play and stuff, and we were just trying to pack their gifts, and that was just a fun memory I had. But lastly, I want to thank all of you for just all of your support that you've given us. And we were super privileged to go, and it was such a blessing and such a blast, and it was so beneficial. So just thank you for supporting us financially and prayerfully, and just thank you guys so much.
Hi, my name is Grady, and I'm really thankful to be part of the team, and one of my favorite parts about the trip was probably hanging out with the VBS kids. And like my dad was saying, the morning, through lunchtime was VBS, but then after that we kind of just got to hang around with the kids and play games. So one of my favorite memories was when all the kids and us hung out in the sauna, and then when we got hot, we quick ran out and jumped in the cold pool, and that was really fun. I also want to say thanks also for lots of things, but for one thing, just raising enough money for us to go. And we did have a few small hiccups, but I'm also thankful that God came through and solved those for us. So yeah, I'm just thankful for that.
Hi, everyone. For you guys who don't know me, my name is Hunter Gladson. This is my wife, Darby.
and she's Chad and Stacy's daughter, if you guys can't tell from looking at her. Looks very similar to them. But yeah, just kind of repeating what they said, we're both very, very thankful for all of the support, just financially and through prayer that we had. It took a lot of the weight off our shoulders, I think, and just the encouragement we had going into it. It makes something like traveling out of the country for the first time and stuff like that definitely a lot easier. So we can't thank you guys enough for that. So what I'll be going through is kind of talking about, I guess, my personal expectations of what I thought a missions trip would be. Growing up my entire life, whether right or wrong, I guess, when I was thinking about a missions trip, I thought it was kind of labor focused. Like I'd picture myself going somewhere and either building something up or tearing something down, and just kind of, I guess, things similar to that. But this was definitely an eye-opener, because now I was going to be leading a VBS with a group of children, and that is something in the past that I really have had no experience in whatsoever. I think I remember maybe helping my mom set up a classroom one time for VBS, but that was about all the experience I had. And on this trip, I was going to be leading a group of, I think we had 5, or what was the group age? 3 to 5-year-olds. So that was definitely a big kind of eye-opener and stressor for me going into it, but it was really cool to see how God kind of worked worked in our group, and all the people that helped out to just allow the week to go so well. And it definitely opened my eyes and Darby's eyes as well to just different ways that God can use us. And I guess one thing that changed coming back was we actually now help serve at our church in Eureka Liberty Bible Church. And we lead Sunday school for 4-year-olds. So that it was a big changer for Darby and I and our perspectives of the way that God can use us. And then I'll also be going over a fun memory we had. It's kind of hard to pick a favorite memory with a trip that was just full of so many just truly amazing moments. But one fun thing that I remember is the first night we got to the retreat center that we're going to be staying at with the missionary kids. We didn't really know the kids super well yet. It was the first time we're meeting them, and it can be kind of awkward at first just trying to get to know them. But right away that first night, we all played a game called Sardines. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's kind of like reverse hide and seek, where one person goes and hides and everyone's trying to find them, and then as you find them, you kind of sit and hide with them, and the last person is the next person to hide. But that was just a really neat way to get to know the kids and to kind of set up a foundation for the week with them, with a relationship that we can just like build off of from, instead of us just being like a teacher or someone who stands in front of them and tells them about God. We actually were able to get to know them more personally and have just a fun relationship with them as we went throughout the week, and that was definitely a really, really cool experience for us.
Hi, my name's Darby. I am Hunter's wife. And I just want to say thank you again for all of the support that you guys raised for us, whether it was prayerfully, financially, or with the curriculum. As Justin mentioned, that was huge. It actually was written in Spanish as well for part of it, which was very helpful. I feel like I would have struggled to come up with everything just on the fly off the top of my head. And so I was able to read through the curriculum and then have Avery and Josie help me out a ton. So it was truly amazing. And it was also really great because when I was in college, I studied Spanish education, but I never had the opportunity to study abroad because of COVID and just several other factors that got in the way. And when Justin and Cody brought this to my parents, and then my parents came and asked, like, hey, would you maybe want to go to Ecuador with them? And it was amazing how the Lord just dropped that in my lap, because obviously I would want to do that way more than study abroad to get to have a missions trip. And it's been really cool to tell my students now at Washington about Ecuador and mention how it was a missions trip instead of a study abroad opportunity. And I think it's really opened the door for conversations about that, about the gospel as well. So I'm very thankful for that. And I also just want to mention how the Lord worked through me there. One day when we were in Vilcabamba at the retreat center, I was talking to a young missionary who was from Texas, and she had just recently moved to Ecuador with her young family. So she was a young married woman. She had 2 young kids. They were 5 and 3 years old. and she was still kind of in the thick of it. Like she was missing home, she was missing her family. She didn't know the language yet, so her and her family were just trying to work through that, and her kids were at school and struggling, and so she was having a rough time. And we were just kind of talking through it, and I said, wow, I can't believe that you do this. That's amazing. I can't imagine myself being in your shoes. And she said, well, you know what? 2 or 3 years ago, I was in your shoes, and I thought that I would never be doing what I'm doing now. And while I was praying with my husband about whether we are called to go to Ecuador, I talked with another friend, and she said, don't ever say never, because God can take your nevers and get you out there nevering, which is a lot of nevers, I know, but it does have some truth in it. And it was an eye-opener for me as well, because God can do way more than I can think or imagine, and I shouldn't put him in a box, and I shouldn't think that he only has what I think I have in store in the rest of my life. He could have something way better than I could ever think. And so that was really cool to talk with her, and to see how the Lord has worked through her, and then also for him to speak through her to me. And then I also want to just mention Renzo, as Josie had talked about. We had a lot of fun with Renzo and Benha when we were teaching them. And as you can gather, Renzo didn't have the longest attention span. He was, 4 years old. And he, as Josie said, always wanted to wear the armor. Well, one day I was reading through the curriculum before we went, and I saw that it was talking about how if you give them fruit snacks, every time you say the word fruta in Spanish, which is fruit, they can eat a fruit snack. And so it was the day that we taught Adam and Eve, and the word fruta was only in the curriculum like 5 times. So barely enough to finish their snack. And I was like, well, this is great. They're finally going to listen to me. They're going to have to listen to every single word I say. And it backfired. It did not go as planned. Basically, every time I spoke a word, they would both look at me and go, fruta? And I was like, no, I'm not saying fruta yet. And then I would say fruta. Then it'd be like, oh, yeah, we can eat a fruit snack. And I was like, oh. So that did not go overly well. But they did enjoy the lesson, and we did get through it, thankfully. But yes, for the rest of the week, that was pretty much all that they spoke to us was fruta, fruta, fruta. And nope. So yes, that was a really fun memory, and once again, I'm just very thankful for the opportunity to go.
Hi, I'm Maddie Jenkins, and I am going to talk a bit about the second week, but just opening up, I think God's just so awesome. Thank you guys, all of you, so much, and just the church, and we have an awesome team that we went with, and everything was just really cool, just how everything lined up. So I met Becca and Dustin last year in October, and when they were on home assignment, and she became kind of like a mentor to me, because I was already I kind of want to be a missionary. And so they set me up with her, and I started talking, and she was just really awesome and encouraging. And it was funny, I was just going through some texts last night, and she sent me a Bible verse when we were talking, and it was Ephesians 6:14, stand your ground, putting on the belt of truth and the body armor of God's righteousness. And that was last year, and come to find out, we ended up going down there for the VBS, and that it was about the armor of God. So I think that's just looking back, seeing God foreshadowing that I think it was just so awesome. And I got to meet Sandri and David, their partners down there, and that was just so awesome, getting to meet everyone. Becca was there for my baptism, and it was just getting to know them was just such a blessing. And so that second week, we went to go spend some more time with them, worked in that picture that we worked with some getting the kids club stuff ready for actually, that picture is the Bible study, because we were going to go do a women's Bible study with Becca and some ladies, and that was really cool. We went to this girl named Lorena's house, and she gave us empanadas and coffee. She was amazing, and her story was so awesome. And the Bible study was all in Spanish, so it was interesting. But we got to just see a lot of their ministries. We went to the Suro Church, got to meet Sandri's mom and stuff, and just seeing all their ministries was definitely probably my favorite part. We went on August 1st, we went to this place and it had the best chicken ever. I pinned the coordinates on Google Maps, so. And I think it was August 1st also that I got to stay the night at Sandri and David's house, and they speak a tiny, tiny bit of English, but it's mostly only Spanish, so that was an experience staying at someone that, like, their house overnight, like an only Spanish speaking house, and I doubled my Spanish over that night. Now, I didn't speak a lot of Spanish to begin with, but, and walking back from the Bible study too, Sandra and I were just like joking around, like teaching each other English and Spanish, and it was so fun, like laughing. I kept calling dogs Cena, which means dinner, and just joking around, having a good time, and I think we both learned a lot. And that night when I was at their house, we were playing games, and I was speaking Spanish with them and stuff, and that was just so cool. Like, I didn't even know I could speak that much Spanish, but I mean, dice games aren't that hard to speak Spanish with. And then so we helped Becca prepare for the Kids Club, which is now started up, which is really awesome, and we got to see the building for that, and it was just like so cool. That's like an after-school program they do for the kids. It's awesome. And we got to, and also Becca and Dustin have these two dogs, Frodo and Naboo. Frodo likes rocks, and he's really something. I love him. But the 4th we traveled, well, we had to say bye to everyone, and after on the 4th, because first we went there and we had some really good food, and at Catamayo we saw iguanas climbing up trees. Those were cute. And we flew to Quito and drove to the hosteria. The 5th we went to some hot springs, and this guy, when Becca and I were in a pool together, he just like randomly came up to us and he started asking her questions about like the Bible. And I just thought that was really cool. Like, out of every single person in that pool, like, he came up to the missionary. And just, we hiked through an avocado grove, like, saw planes go right above our heads. And then we went to the airport at that night and had an overnight flight. That was rough, but we made through it. And it was just such a blessing. And like, just going to Ecuador was such an amazing experience. I got to share the gospel with missionaries' kids. I saw the beauty of God's creation. Like, those mountains were gorgeous. And made some lifelong friendships with some awesome people. And I just really appreciate it. And I appreciate everyone here that really like prayerfully supported us financially. So thank you so much.
Wow. Yes, it's hard to even like top those amazing stories, but we're so thankful for this team. Abby Souter is another team member that couldn't be here today. But yeah, the Lord provided in so many ways, and this team was one of them. A highlight I wanted to share from our 2nd week there. So the 5 of us and Maddie stayed an extra week, and that was more of a care team visit for Dustin and Becca. We're on their care team as go-partners. They're our go-partner, something like that. Anyway, we got to stay then and encourage and support them in many of the ways Maddie shared. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about our opportunity to go meet Lorena. So Maddie mentioned this lady that lives up on a mountain, basically. And so once a week, Becca and Sadri drive around the town of Kinara, which is tiny. And they stop at these different women's houses. And I think usually there's 3 or 4 women that are able to go. And they drive up the mountain to Lorena's house, and they have a Bible study there. So the week we were there, none of the other women could come. But Josie, Maddie, Becca, Sandri, and I still drove up the mountain and got to meet this amazing woman. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit about her story. So she and her husband had been believers for quite a while, and they had attended a church in Loja, which is a bigger city about an hour away from Kinara. And after they were attending that church for a while, they started realizing that the teaching wasn't true. They were being taught prosperity gospel teachings and just false. It wasn't lining up with the Word of God, and they realized that, and they left the church. But through that, they were very hurt and became very disillusioned with just the church in general. And so Lorena's husband had forbidden her to go to any churches now, like at all. So she was trying on her own to grow in her faith. She was reading the Bible. She was trying to share the truth of God's love to her family, her children and grandchildren. But it's hard when you're alone. And so she was really battling isolation and loneliness, and had been praying for God to send her some fellow believers in some way. And then meanwhile, I think a year or so before that, Becca and Sandri had met this lady named Maribel in another city, and they had asked her if she wanted to study the Bible with them. And she was doing that. She was not a believer, but she knew that something was different about Becca and Sandri. Anyway, at some point, she met this lady, Lorena. They were talking briefly, and she said, "Oh, I know two ladies you have to meet. I'm going to set up something." So Maribel calls Becca and says, "You have to go to this lady's house in Kinara on this day. I told her you're coming." And so Becca and Sandri are like, "Okay, I guess we're going." That was before they lived in Kinara, I think, right? And so it was all new to them, and they drive. I don't know how they found her house. I mean, it is like on the side of a mountain. And as Lorena sees them like walking up, she thinks they're Mormons. And so she didn't even want to talk to them at first, because that is, Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons are fairly common in Ecuador. And so she was already putting up defenses. Well, thankfully, she took the time to talk to them and get to know them, and found out they're believers in Christ, and wanted to study the Bible with her. And so it was just such a testimony to God's faithfulness of seeing Lorena's need and desire and sending two believers. And she has been such a huge source of encouragement, and I think also just challenging these other women that come to study. And even she challenged me that day we were there. We got to hear a little bit about how God really used Isaiah, the book of Isaiah, to challenge her and to reveal her idolatry. This was years ago, but the Catholic faith there really ties in idols. They use these different virgins, and they basically are idols that they truly worship. And so she had just had that revealed to her, of how she had been trusting in idols, and how you can't have idols and the Lord at the same time. And so anyway, just hearing how he's worked in her life, and now how she is faithfully sharing God's word with her children and grandchildren. So pray for her husband, that he just has his heart healed. And it would be amazing to see the two of them going to that church in Soro someday. They have a lot to offer. So again, that was just a thanks, Lord, for letting us just get a glimpse of that story, and how he's working there, how he's using the Kings and the Ludanias. And again, thanks to you guys so much for just all the different ways you encouraged us and supported us, and allowed us to go.
Yeah, so one other thing I wanted to quick mention is just one big difference that I saw that I thought was kind of cool with the last time that me and my family went to Ecuador. So that was just that last time we lived in Loja, which is, a huge city, tons of people. It's always really busy. You step outside your house, there's taxis and cars everywhere, people walking down the sidewalks. And so I guess connecting with people is a little different. A big city, you never really see people that you know, unless you're meeting up with them. And then the second week of this trip, we were able to live in Kinara, which is, a tiny town. And so it was just cool because, you're encountering the same people, several times. And even in the week that we stayed there, we encountered some of the same people, several times, which is just cool. And I feel like that could make it easier, but also just a different way to connect with people, just because you're seeing them and you're around them so much more. And so that could be cool. But I also just want to give a big thanks to everybody for making it possible for us to go down there, and for me and my family to see old friends and just talk with them again, but also for everyone to reconnect with the missionaries there, and just to see kind of how things are going down there and how the organization really works better. So thank you.
And just the last thing that I wanted to communicate here to kind of wrap our time up is just, as Cody had mentioned, we're on Dustin and Becca's care team. And so Newcastle, thankfully, is super supportive of the Go Care partners actually physically visiting the missionaries on site. Just to be able to, we hear a lot of the ministries, but to be able to see them firsthand is another thing. And to be able to physically see their ministries, to sit down with the people that they're discipling with, and to tell them, hey, my church in the United States is praying for you. It means so much to them. And so yeah, they the people that Dustin and Becca are discipling, the Suro Church, communicate their thanks, their gratefulness, their gratitude, just for our generosity to them. I don't know if you remember, but one of the things happening, well, here, before I get to that, I'll just say also we had just a fun time just serving the Kings while we're there. Obviously, we are not there for them to serve us. We're just trying to find ways, washing their cars, building shelves for their kitchen, just praying for them, hanging out with them. Cody had mentioned before, and Maddie, just helping with a curriculum for their kids club coming up, and it's actually happening right now. But just a week full of just trying to sit down and think, okay, how can we bless them today? What can we do? And they're very appreciative of that. What I was going to say, just being able to physically visit their church, the Suro Church. I don't know if you remember, but previously this year, we had an exit offering for the Suro Church bathroom. They had landslides, they had a bunch of rain, and it took out their bathrooms completely. Somehow they're still trying to use them, although it was breaking away from the church. And so our church provided all the money needed for materials to replace those bathrooms. And as you can see a picture there, they took care of the labor. This is Dustin and Becca King's new daughter-in-law to your right, and Gabby married Weston King. And so Gabby was kind of the general contractor and brought together some people in the community to work on that bathroom, and it is now complete. They have brand new bathrooms for their church, and they're super grateful for Newcastle for providing that. So be able to see it, to be there and take pictures of it, is super cool. So if you haven't already gotten the sense that we're super grateful and thankful for you, thanks. So neat to be able to be the ones being sent. Hopefully, as you sit here and listen, you were able to at least take part in some of that, some of the fruit of this trip. Awesome team, awesome trip, awesome church. We're just super grateful. If anyone has any questions, a few questions, looks like we have a little bit of time for that. And then when we're done with that, I'll just close in prayer and be dismissed. But anybody have any questions for us? It's an open panel. You're going to make it easy on us. Oh, yes.
I'll ask a question. So I saw in the one picture that you guys had a meal with Amanda as well. It looked like she was there. Did you help support her at all or work with her in her ministries as well, or do they overlap with Dustin and Becca, or can you explain that at all?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, we were side by side, Amanda, the whole time. Obviously, the first week, the Spiritual Life Conference, Amanda was one of the key people putting all that together. And so we're working pretty closely with her, with the VBS part of it. As far as the second week of that, So Kenara and Vilcabamba, where Amanda is literally only like 10, 15 minutes away. So yeah, many days, Amanda would be over at Dustin and Becca's place. Their ministries do overlap quite a bit. They do work very closely together with Becca and Dustin in their ministries. So I'm trying to remember your questions. Did I hit all that? Did you want to add anything to that? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I saw her in the pictures.
Oh, yeah.
If you spent some time like supporting her as well.
Yes. Yes.
So one cool thing about Amanda King now, where she's at in Vilcabamba, is her church now is a church plant of the church we used to go to in Loja. So one day we did get to do a big lunch, and it was all the ministry workers from Vilcabamba. So it was Amanda and Dustin and Becca, and then the local Ecuadorians that helped them with their ministry. And so also Pastor Carlos and Esther were there, who we had known from previous. So it was cool to get to connect with them again, and then see how Amanda is an amazing instrument right there and is working along with them. So yeah, thank you. That was a great question.
Last chance to stump the panel. All right. Looks like you guys get out early. Let me pray for us, and then you'll be dismissed. Father, thank you so much. We obviously are excited to share and to listen to the many stories, but ultimately you are the grand orchestrator of it all, and all credit is due your name. We thank you so much for your generosity to us. Thank you just for physical provisions, but also Lord, just how each and every day we are renewed in you, and just your unending grace and love for us. Thank you so much for just being able to be instruments of that to the kids, to the adults in Ecuador, just being able to pour out what you have filled us up with. So thank you so much for your provisions here from the States, just also in Ecuador, and what you're doing there, what you're continuing to do there. Continue to bless Dustin and Becca and Amanda and the other missionaries, as well as the kids living there now. God, use them, continue to use them to reach the people of Ecuador, fill them up with your love and pour out of them as you so faithfully have been doing. Thank you for that. Thank you so much for including us in your work. And God, I just ask for your blessing on the rest of this day. And just especially thank you for this time that we've had this past hour. This we ask and we pray in your son's name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you.